It's time for me to introduce this week's special marketing maker. Kate Bradley Chernis is the founder and CEO of Lately, the only social media management platform that creates content for you with the power of artificial intelligence. As a former marketing agency owner, Kate initially created the idea for Lately out of spreadsheets for then-client Walmart, and they achieved a 130% return on investment year over year for 3 years. Prior to founding Lately, Kate served 20 million listeners as music director and on-air host at SiriusXM. She's also an award-winning radio producer, engineer, and voice talent with 25 years of national broadcast communications, brand building, sales, and marketing expertise. Kate is an enormously successful entrepreneur and understands the value of marketing measurement as both a CEO and someone who delivers measurable results to her clients. She is the true epitome of a marketing maker. I would love to talk to you about measurement because, first of all, you're one of the smartest CEOs that I know, and you're looking at this from two lenses, and I think it's really important to draw those out. One is, as the leader in a business, you're getting told what various measurements are by various parts of your business, and then two, you run a business that is a software, is a technology tool for those that are in marketing, and you're, I'm sure, getting asked by customers about how you're helping them measure the results of what it is they're doing. So I would just, first of all, just at the broadest level, I would love to get your take. What's the state of marketing measurement today? Like where are we in being able to actually measure marketing as a practice?
Thank you for those kind words, by the way. Overall, it's so interesting, Robert, because marketing, of course, fundamentally hasn't changed since someone invented the wheel and someone had to market that thing, right? Thousands of
Yeah.
years ago. And there's certainly, I believe, more art than science, but there is science, right? And it's interesting to me how people need to science it to death also, and forget that you can actually measure some of the art, by the way, right? So that has to be part of your component. You can't just wipe it off into this black box of mystery and say, well, I don't know how it works. I'll just throw it out to the wind and guess and wing it, But for us, like, we found that overall the process is 100% broken, from the things that you said, not only like our personal experience, but then I'm in this world of SaaS, venture capital, right? And so there's only two processes that have been established. Seriously, right? So they are, for everybody, in case you didn't know, they're either you make a bank of SDRs, sales development reps, who smile and dial and call you all the time and like annoy you, which I don't pick up those calls, right? Or cold emails, right? Never respond to those things. And it's a numbers game. It's, the whole goal is like, well, the more you annoy people, eventually someone will pick up the phone, and eventually that'll be worth the whole kabang. Then the other way is generally paid advertising. You just throw money at it, right? So both of those can be measured to no end, but both of them have stopped working because we, the humans, we're over this, right? And yet it seems that in my industry, they're very slow to catch on here. So the way to win now that we've not only been testing, but living and breathing, is the hard way, right? Doing things the hard way. And that means figuring out maybe un unconventional ways of measuring our success.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, you know, and I definitely I want to press on that because I want to hear about these unconventional methods, because I think that to me is the real key here, right? These unconventional ideas that aren't found in Google Analytics, they're not found in an Excel spreadsheet, they're not, they're human processes ultimately that feel like where we get these measurements. But I think you also touched on something that's really important, which is, one of the fundamental flaws that I find in measurement is we don't agree on what success looks like. In other words, we have this, so, for example, mile versus kilometer, right? And there was a complete NASA spaceship that got lost, in the atmosphere of Mars because the, you know, we one system was based on metric and the other system was based on miles, and they didn't talk to each other, right? And the same thing happens, I find here too, is that you go to the CEO and you say, we got all these visits, we got all these page visits, we got all these downloads, and the CEO goes, well, I have a whole different definition in my mind about what that means. So we never even really define what success is.
Mm.
And do you find that when you're talking about these unconventional ideas, that they really sort of center on saying, okay, great, this is how we're going to define success, right? This is our definition of success, or is it something different?
It's something pressed upon them generally, right? I
Hmm.
don't think people know, to your point, they don't know what the success is, because for some reason, like even though you and I live and breathe marketing, it's not that complicated. But for some reason, the world perceives it as like math, you know, right? Like a very hard thing. And what so let's talk about like this a simple thing. For example, I have two sort of cases that I can think of. Number one, I remember an entrepreneur recently said to me, "Okay, we want to change the name of the company. What should we do?" And I was like, "Why do you want to change the name of the company?" And he said, "Because my sales team has a hard time pronouncing it on the phone." And I said, "Okay, that's
That's
their
not
measurement."
really a good reason.
Right. And the question is why? That's the first thing I thought. So then I said, "Well, are you having problems with SEO or customers finding you online?" He's like, "No, no, no. We get found online, no problem." And I was like, "Okay, okay. Are customers complaining that they have a hard time with the name?" And he was like, "No." And I was like, "So I know you're an entrepreneur like I am. You must have 50 other houses on fire. This is the most important one." Right? So like that's just an interesting thing, like to figure out like, well, I mean, it sounds to me like you've got a problem with your sales team who they're lazy.
Right.
Right. So that's one example. And then another, again, just I like to take things down to the base level, Robert, is I work in social media as you do a lot. And when it comes to, especially for smaller businesses, but really generally, the KPI of any social post that you want to kind of use as your start point is only two things: reshares or clicks. There's only two measurements, right? You're
Yep.
either going to put a link in there that you want someone to click, that's what you want them to do, or you want them to reshare. That's so simple. And the measurement where it's the problem where it starts is not identifying that and not even knowing that, right? So like people say, why are you doing marketing? Either I don't know, because we're supposed to. And I'm like, well, the answer is for money to drive sales. Like that's the reason, right? And then if you take those objectives, so like again, back down to the social post, if your objective is neither of those things, you'll achieve neither of those things. But if it is reshare, it's very easy to think about, okay, well then how do we break the words of what we're using, each sentence, to cause someone to do this action for us, right? So easy.
It's it it's a great point. I mean, the reshare and the link, especially because if you sort of peel all those layers back, right, and you go to your point, why are we doing this marketing? Well, it's to do one of two things. One is to pull more people into our sphere of influence. There's your click. Two, reshare, reach more people. And that's it. It's reach and conversion, reach and conversion. It's just that simple. I mean, it was so funny. I talked to a programmer. This goes way back. I'm old. So this goes back to the late 90s when we were just getting into websites and technology and really driving this sort of internet thing. And I was speaking to a coder who was coding up, at the time, all these interactive applications. And I said to him, I said, What would you say about breaking down your job, your function? He said, oh, it's easy. He said, I do two things. I read data or I write data. That's it. He said, what happens in between is kind of what I do, right? He said, but really all I do is read it and I write it and I do some stuff in between that process that really does neat and interesting things. And to me, that's all it really is when we think about marketing and measurement is all we're trying to do is reach people and get them to do something. And any
Yes.
measurement that doesn't sort of start there sort of just doesn't really, it doesn't really help us do anything.
It doesn't. I mean, so that even simpler, I love, is like we're trying to get people to do what we want them to, which
Right.
a lot of people are ashamed to admit, but it's very important right up front to say what that is. It's either to make you give me my money in the end, right? Or what's the process? Like, so we're talking about measurement, then it becomes a little bit more complex. So if the one goal is to get someone to say, reshare your content, and then the end goal is to give them your money. So what are the steps that need to happen in between there, right? So in startup land, for example, um, MRR or monthly recurring revenue is like your end all be all. It's you live and die by this number in software as a service land because that's your driver, right? This is why it's such a hot investment topic or investment thesis. So for your MRR, you're always talking about this. And when I was working with Jason Calacanis, he helped us understand that actually MRR was usually not the KPI, the key measurement of the business, because something has to drive the MRR. And so we knew, for example, for forever that the demo was the thing that made humans go, oh my God. And we always had a high conversion. It was always around 52%. And so we thought, well, if we know that the demo completes the sale, right, that's a really high sale conversion, let's make sure that all of our marketing, all of our social media, all of our reshares or clicks are designed to inspire someone to get a demo from us, right? So that's that middle part there. So our demo requests are now at 98%. Let me say that again, 98%.
I'm gonna point out quickly that that's an outlier number. Okay, it's
Yes.
just that's a really really impressive number.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
But and it's because we ignored the old models, right? The old models are looking at things that matter to us, but it's like views, clicks, engagements, all that kind of stuff that, as you pointed out earlier, is meaningless. It's a meaningless unless you can, I want to say connect the dots, but I also hate that because like we talked about the art and science of marketing and there is gut involved, right? So like I'll share the pathway that we do, right? So we first think about the content we're putting out. Is it quality enough to even get someone to reshare or like it? That's the most important thing, right? And we have high standards of that. And the first thing we do is put ourselves in the shoes of the customer. We were talking about how we don't like cold calls earlier or cold emails. So why would we do that to someone else? You know? So we think about what's the golden rule that is most likely to get people to trust us, because we know trust is a huge factor, as you know very well, and then to respond in some way. So I'll ask you for a file. I'll ask you for the file of this interview. We'll run it through lately. I'll describe the manual process so people can do this because this is not a commercial, but you can take an interview like this, transcribe it, find the cool quotes of advice that you or I have said today, and then use those quotes as social media posts themselves to drive traffic for people to click to watch the rest of this show or to reshare it. And when you think about, I love this, by the way, it's hard to get people to click unless it's a how-to video usually. But the reshares are pretty easy because reshares are very egotistical because I get credit for what you said. I look cool for what you said, right? So it very much plays to people's egos, kind of like in college when someone turned you on to new music and then you got to share it. You were like the spreader, So if you think about your content, is the content you're putting out playing to the egos of people in that way, right? Okay, yes. And then you have to do it a lot, of course, you have to make a lot of noise. We all know this. So you have lots of content of quality moving around. Once we see people liking, commenting, or sharing our content, we consider them a warm lead because they are, right? They're clearly invested or interested in some way. We have our series of qualifications that we need to check off quickly that we can see they fill literally by looking at their social channels. And if they pass, then we have a conversation with them, right? And the conversation eventually moves to sales. But we found for our customers that, I'm sorry for talking a long time, but their value points are not save time and save money, which most people think is the point of their whole product. For us, it's community. So a feeling of belonging, right? That's what we need to get to, that trust level. So the conversations we're having isn't, hey, come get a demo, right? It's more like, oh my God, you're in San Jose too. I was just there last year. No way, right? And
It's
so,
amazing. I mean,
yeah,
so first of all, the fact that you can describe it, what is a very organic process as a process, is, I think, one of the critical things there. Two, I think, and this is such an underappreciated point, and it's, we see it all the time in the clients that we work with, which is, if you're good at something, right? Every company is good at something at some part of that process, right? For you, it's the demo. And for others, I hear this all the time. It's like, "Oh, well, if we can get somebody to sit in the seat in front of us, we will close them." Or if I can get somebody to talk to my CEO, I know we'll get that deal. Or if we can get somebody to hit our website and read our blog, I know they'll turn into a thing. For me, it's, if I get to talk with someone, I'm pretty sure that unless, we're too expensive or it's just not the right, time or something like that, they're going to become a client. And so everybody's got that thing.
mm,
But the funny thing is that we rarely recognize that thing as being the heart of what it is we're really trying to do.
mm.
We go all the way to like loyal customer, right? And so we skip over that thing and build, and instead of building our ecosystem of pulling people into that thing,
Yeah.
we try and figure out all of these different other things that we're trying to optimize for no reason.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and just to further the proof there, like we had terrible website traffic forever because it didn't matter. We
Right,
weren't trying to drive
exactly,
people to the
exactly.
web,
Yeah,
right? Yeah. We wanted them into the demo. And
yeah,
then one day it did matter. And I was like, oh no, now we need to address this.
yeah.
So and I think, I want to talk about the gut piece too, and like how, if that's all right, like how your gut comes into measurement, because I think that's something that, so one of the things you have to do is dog food everything, right? Meaning, eat your own dog food, like Purina. That's how they
Isn't it drink your own
made it.
champagne or something like
Yes,
that?
drink your own
Yeah,
champagne. That's the
okay.
nicer way.
Yeah,
I'm,
yeah,
I'm such a sailor.
yeah.
Rock and roll DJ career. That's they
There we
took
go.
they took the lady out of me. Um, by the way, that's one of our favorite songs. Is that's no lady. She's my wife. We always play that during dinner.
Nice.
So I just lost my train of thought because I was stuck on that. What
We
was I
were
gonna
talking about that magical thing and website traffic not mattering until it actually does.
so one thing that's really important is to have all of your whole staff, even your engineers or HR or people you think that don't matter, sign up to receive the company everything, whether it's emails that are drips campaigns and sales, or once you have a customer as a customer, the communications they receive, make sure that everybody sign up online to follow you on Twitter and LinkedIn or wherever, because you get a lot of good feedback, obviously, right? And then you're keeping people abreast of what's happening in the messaging, so everybody's on the same page. But also, it's a great like crowdsourced gut measurement, right? If you sign everybody up for the newsletter and you say, "Did you read it?" and everybody says no, your own employees, you have a problem,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. It's
Um,
funny. You know, you go through and you visit a company and you go, let's look at their Facebook page. And it's like, oh, we've got 200 likes and we've got 400 people in our company. We just can't get Janet in accounting to like the page. We just can't, it's like, maybe there's something to that. We gotta,
Yes.
right. It's that we have to get everybody internally on board first before everybody externally is going to even care.
And I think that's honestly, I really do feel this way, Robert, that that's the most important measurement of all, right? And we started there. Like, I believe that company culture is, and I hate that that's a buzzword, but I'm going to use it, is the key driver to external sales and success, because I worked in corporate for so long and I had people beat me around and it felt bad. I don't want that. So I wanted to make sure that I created a space where people like me, we call them wild horses, can thrive, because that's
Yeah.
how we roll. And
Yeah.
I work hard to make um so a key measurement for me, having been in radio for so long, is turning listeners into fans or customers into evangelists, right? And evangelism, when you can get your own staff to do it, again, it bleeds out. And then it's the same way that you get your customers to do it. And it's the same way we have people who are not our customers who evangelize us, because we decided that everyone who can get a demo, even if they're a DQ, even if we know they're not going to buy the product, there's a good chance they'll talk about us everywhere if we get them to like us. So yesterday, actually, I have a new salesperson, Andy, who started. He's amazing. He's actually incredible. He like made his first sale in a week. He's so lovely. Um, and I said to him, your job, your Achilles heel right now, the one thing you need to get better at is to make people your friends in a call.
Wow. Well, that's good.
Yeah.
I think I mean, people underestimate, and that comes back to everything that you said in the very beginning, that is an art, right? You can't algorithm that, right? You can't turn that into some AI predictive, thing that personalizes blah 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 blah. Friendship and that kind of relationship and building those kinds of evangelists and fans, that will always remain in the realm of art and creativity and the magic, quite frankly, of what we do in marketing. Just one last question for you. So, on that topic, when you think about next year, 5 years from now, and the future of how we're going to measure this success, what do those things look like? Like, if I'm trying to think about this today as a business manager, either in a Fortune 500 company or as the sort of entrepreneur starting up a new business, what do I need to be thinking about in terms of measurement?
So for two things. Number one, I love to break things down to the base level, like to the DNA of it. So we're very focused on words, as you know, and I see that becoming, I hope, actually, that becomes more popular understanding, right? Because that content itself, content, blah, 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 it's like just vomit all over the place out there, right? And people have no even understanding of what quality content means, right? They're not thinking about those base values. We talked about community as being one that we know our customers respond to, right? For some people, it's productivity. And also, not all of your customers respond to the same values. I'm quoting my friend David Allison here. So it's an understanding of multiple kinds of, I'm going to just keep saying, values that your customers will respond to. And then what's the DNA that you can use of the words and the messaging you're using that actually trigger them into doing the thing that you want, right? Whatever that KPI is we're talking about is the key one. So that's at the or basic. I hate saying basic because it's not really basic, but that's at the start level, And then I want to again touch on the gut as well. I know that automation and AR are becoming a larger part of marketing. We're proponents of that, obviously, but it's my true belief that they can't exist without each other, right? So I was just quoting Keith Richards says, "Without the roll, it's just a march," meaning rock
Yeah.
and roll, right?
Nice.
Now think about that, right? So like just think of all that swing and groove that goes into it, a march to make it rock and roll, right? Or would have to, because a march is like this stiff, boring thing. And it's the same thing with humans, AI or automation and humans. Like without the gut, without the magic, without that unspeakable thing, it's just a march.
Oh, I love that, and we're stopping there because that's the most perfectly wonderful, poetic, and artistic way to end this. Um, Thank you, my friend, so very much for that wisdom, and thank you for coming on the show. I so appreciate it.
Thank you.